Welcome to the Humans and Earth podcast. We bring you inspiration and practical resources for healing our planet and ourselves. It is time for soulful contributions that regenerate life on Earth.
I'm Helen Harmon, a thought leader and teacher who believes we're ready to renew Earth and heal ourselves in the process. Welcome to today's episode. Welcome to the Humans and Earth podcast. It is my pleasure today to talk with Jeilene Tracey, who is a vibrational geneticist. Jeilene Tracey channels light-infused sound and energy to heal, soothe, and balance the emotional, mental, and physical body at all levels. She developed the modality vibrational genetics with guidance from the Mantis collective and drawing on her training in molecular biology, Reiki, body talk, theta healing, and shamanism. Combining the guidance of her Mantis guide Mari with aspects of each of these methods, Jeilene offers a grounded metaphysical healing experience that is transformative and empowers clients to create changes that give them lasting health and vitality. Jeilene offers private healing sessions, webinars, courses, retreats, meditations, recorded tones, herbs, and a vibrant online community, the Light Vibes Network. Welcome, Jeilene. It is so nice to have you here with us today.
Thanks so much for having me on the show.
I'd like to begin by giving you a chance to tell us, how did you get into this work of connecting directly with Earth and the beings who are supporting Earth and humanity right now? I know that, like many people, you began with a more quote-unquote conventional background, and you're now doing this very holistic work. So please tell us about that.
Okay. So yes, I do have a more conventional background. I was in the sciences and started my awakening healing journey for lots of different reasons. But during that journey, when I was studying the different modalities that you mentioned, I began connecting with a group of beings known as the Mantis. And they began to help me with my healing sessions, informing me what was going on in people's bodies. I studied molecular biology and worked for different genomics companies throughout my career. And so their information was really in alignment with that because it helped me to understand what was going on at that molecular level in the DNA. The thing about these beings, though, is that they reside within the earth, and they began teaching me a lot about their relationship to the earth, their relationship with the microbiome and the earth, and the way that all natural systems work. I'd always been interested in nature and spending time outdoors. And as a child, I spent almost all my time outdoors, usually alone, as it turns out, exploring, hiking, being outside. And so that love of nature parlayed into getting a biological degree. And that then led me, though, to continue investigating, the mechanism behind nature, which really down to the infinitesimal is the DNA, right? And so I spent a lot of time very interested in DNA. And these beings, the Mantis, are also very adept at working with DNA and genomics and cloning and all of that. And they taught me a lot about working with human beings using sound and tones to shift DNA elements and to shift DNA expression and cell-to-cell communication and the energy fields of humans and animals. So my work with them brought me closer and closer to the earth because they themselves are here to support Earth and to help support her evolution. They've been here for millions of years, and they've been really similar to the microbes in that they've been here almost the whole time, kind of just facilitating her growth, her expansion. They have a vested interest in helping her because they know that Earth, who sits in this very important node of energy in the universe, is going through an expansion and evolution process that is reflective of many processes that are happening throughout the universe. But she holds such a special energy. She's such a intense conglomeration of source energy. She's so powerful, so that when changes occur and expansion occurs on Earth, because of the way the vibratory field is in this realm, it's felt in far-reaching dimensional fields. And this is also a school and like a grand experiment for what can happen, what can unfold, what it feels like to experience emotion, to be embodied, to be in physical form. And so the earth enables all of those things. And so it's got a lot of attention upon it from beings around Earth. It's also got a lot of beings that live within Earth, and the Mantis are part of that group. So that's what really drew me in connection also with my love of nature for my whole life. And I think that knowing that the Mantis have been part of my life has helped me to understand how along the way that they were, intercalating in different experiences for me. And even they've let me know where they placed me as a child, where I incarnated into, to have that time outdoors, uninhibited, to be in connection with nature, to be outside all of the time. And then to grow up and have this love of nature and learning, and then to incorporate that into bringing it into service to others. Mm-hmm. So I felt like all along the way they were there, including, I would say, when just a little side note, when I was in the biotech industry, I had stopped working for a little while after the birth of my second child, and was going to go back and was dabbling around in some different things to do, real estate and other things. And out of the blue, I got a call from one of my former customers who asked what I was up to and did I want to come do the business development and sales for his new company that was all about the microbiome. So that was my very early introduction to the microbiome years ago. That was 10 years ago now. And so I got to participate, learn about the microbiome at a time, I think, when it was really relevant and just kind of coming into our whole collective awareness. And I just feel like that call out of the blue was just, why they thought of me, I don't know. But I just felt like the whole thing was inspired by everything else that has unfolded, because the microbiome, of course, is such an integral part of everything that we know, and the way we express ourselves, and the way this earth is run, the way our bodies are run.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk more about the microbiome, and maybe we'll get to that. But I think the first question that arises for me as you give that review of what your path has been like is, it sounds like one of the things you've learned in your work is that the human relationship to the earth is way more important than we have realized.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people are coming to see that this is not about recycling. I mean, recycling is important. This is not just about climate change. Climate change, of course, is important, but there's this way bigger context that is very, very relational and profoundly involves us as beings, and the earth and all the beings on her and in her. So I'm wondering, what's your sense right now in 2020 of what is the next most important thing that humans can focus on? Again, climate change, recycling, all of this, but that's the lower level. So I'd love to hear you talk about even the bigger context.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think there's a lot of confusion about really what to do right now, and how we can affect change, being the one in this large system. So what the guidance I get from the Mantis and another group that I work with who I've met through the Mantis, they call themselves the Earth Logos. And the Mantis are really part of that, but it's a wider collective consciousness. It includes more of the beings in inner Earth. So I bring them up because what they have emphasized to me, these groups, is that we came to be physical human beings, and through that experience, we are able to embody the truth of our being, really, as direct reflections, direct embodiments of source energy. But the earth is an integral part of that process. It is a definitive part of that process. We came here in collaboration with earth. Our expression, our existence is dependent upon earth. We express ourselves in the physical with molecules from her body. We drink her water, we breathe her air, we eat her food, right? Everything's coming from the earth. So it makes sense that if we are to carry out our purpose here, our mission, then we must do it in that continual collaboration with earth. Connecting to earth is the best way to come into full realization of that collaboration. So connecting to earth to me looks like dropping my energy into earth every day, spending time in her body, sending her gratitude, also asking for her healing, working in that go-between relationships, sending her love, receiving her love, letting her know that, that I haven't forgotten about her, letting her know that we support her. So if every human being was less focused with all of the material aspects of this existence, which I do believe have been just a major distraction from the reality of our situation, which is that we are spirit having this human experience in collaboration with earth, that we don't even get to be here if we're not part of that collaboration, really. And if we are here and we're not in that collaboration, we don't survive very well. We end up getting sick. Even for humans to travel into outer space, we survive for a period of time. But if you originated on this planet and you're from here and you vibrate in resonance with Earth, you are going to suffer physical issues when you are in space for long periods of time, because you're missing that frequency, you're missing that resonance in your body, that relationship. So I like to, actually every healing that I always start by connecting into the earth. I do that daily. And I think that although it seems as though just connecting into the earth might not solve global problems, I think it's a necessary place to start so that we all get more connected to our bodies and into being physical. And we're not trying to pop out of the body. We're really staying grounded and physical in the body, and using the body basically as our doorway or a gateway into more expanded states. But that when we do so, we're doing so with that energy of the earth, because that's really our lifeblood. And I think native cultures all over this world have known that for thousands of years. It's just that we have become entirely distracted over the past several hundred years and have forgotten this information, or just tried to squash it out. Just didn't feel like, it didn't affect the bottom line. But the whole thing about the bottom line is that it's just a lost leader, right? It doesn't get anyone anything that we actually came here to accomplish in our purpose, which is to have this shared experience. We're really just these energy beings moving through expansion and moving from that place of formlessness to form and then back to formless again. And that whole process that we're undergoing, at the microcosmic level and in the human body from birth to death, and that macrocosmic level at our soul level, our soul energy, is basically the whole process of source itself, right? It's to express itself, it's to experience, and then it's to fold back in and then recreate itself anew based on that integrated information. And this is what Earth is undergoing as well. It's just on a far longer timeline, right? Mm-hmm. But we're part of that evolutionary process. And so our actions matter. The way that we interact with the Earth matters. The way that we interact with all life. And Earth is, and the expression of Earth is the plants, the animals, the microbes, everything. People like to demonize microbes or viruses, right? They're just part of this system here. Every cell or every being on this planet is opportunistic in its own way. I mean, my God, look at humans. Look at the destruction we've wrought on this planet. Everything is opportunistic in nature, right? Everything is either working against or for or with each other. And most species are working synergistically with each other for survival, because the species that have realized that they need to be in it together to survive well are the ones that adapt the best and do the best. Now, humans seem to have forgotten that, and we're not that synergistic, right? We don't take care of the animals that well. Some do, but the majority don't, right? The corporations are not taking care of the environment or the animals or the people very well. And so that's all got to be where things start to change.
Yeah. Yeah. To remember ourselves as deeply part of this system, in the way that every other organism is, right? If you would like to lead us through the way that you like to connect to Earth, you're welcome to do that. I'm sure some of our listeners would love to hear your version of that. So
Sure.
we can do that if you want to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that, because it's simple and it's something that I do daily. And I think that if you incorporate it into your routine, then it helps to bring a sense of calm and centeredness, helps you to get very present moment focused. I know that you're aware of the 5 movements that I brought in this year. That is one way that I do it. It's just a series of simple movements. And then the other way is this short meditation that I can take us through right now. That sounds good.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's close our eyes and take some nice deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, feel your energy flow into your body, flowing all the way down to your belly, and exhaling out any tension, any fear. Every cell in your body coming into present moment awareness. This moment right here, right now. And then as you breathe, start to see roots flowing downward from your body, down through the floor, into the earth below. Those roots meet the soil and they happily begin to spread out and flow downward. As if magnetically drawn, they flow through the many layers of Earth's surface, through her sands and soils, rocks, layers of sediment and water, flowing through caves, winding their way down effortlessly, flowing towards her core, her center. Earth's magnetic resonance and energy field emanate from her center, a beautiful area of light and energy, often seen as golden. You may see it as a different color, and that is fine. Allow your roots to flow towards her center, towards the light that you see. And your roots anchor into this light and connect with Earth deeply. We send her gratitude and love for this beautiful human experience we get to have here. Thanking her for the food, the water, the air that we breathe. For providing beauty and diversity, and the explosion of life upon her surface. We send gratitude to all of those beings, seen and unseen, that support our bodies and our existence here. All the way from the microbes to the animals and the plants. And she receives our gratitude, and with love, she begins to flow Our beautiful energy up through our roots. As you inhale, that energy flows upwards through those roots, moving up through the earth and toward your body. Inhaling deeply draws that light upwards. As the light reaches the base of your being, you may invite it in, and immediately it begins to flow upwards through the soles of your feet and merge with every cell in your body, flowing up through muscle and bone and blood and lymph, rising up through the feet, the ankles, the calves, the shins, rising up through the knees, into the thighs, the backs of the legs, into the hips, up through the waist and the belly, flowing up through all of the organs, up to the shoulders, flowing down through the arms into the fingertips, and rising up through the neck and into the head, till your whole body is filled with her light radiating from your core as it radiates from her core. That light emanates from your body and flows into every energy field around you, bringing you into harmony with your environment, peace and balance. You and Earth are one. You and all that is are one. All beating to the same cosmic heartbeat. Energy flowing, receiving, and flowing forth. Take a nice deep breath. Feeling all that energy within you. And then you can come back and open your eyes when you're ready.
And now we remember where we are in the universe.
That's right.
Why do you think so much help is coming forward now? You and I are approximately the same age, and when we were younger, you didn't hear people talking about healing humans by working with the Mantis beings. And you're not unusual now in being a healer who has connections with other beings who are assisting. Any thoughts on why this assistance seems more available now?
Yeah, well, from what I can gather, the energy on the planet has really changed. We have moved out of an era of constriction and repression, and we're moving into a very expanded state of awareness. That expansion of energy, and coupled with the Earth's relative location in the galaxy, coupled with human consciousness expanding along with Earth's expansion, has enabled us to open up our energy fields, has enabled our pineal gland to recognize the presence of things around us that beforehand were not understood or recognized. For example, the mantis, I believe, have been around me my entire life, but it wasn't until I had been on this journey for a while that I recognized that they were there. And it was the kind of thing that once I recognized they were there, I realized, oh, I think you've been here the whole time. I just didn't have the awareness to notice. And I think that's the same for many people because the energy on the planet's changed. The very texture of it, the electromagnetic frequency has changed. And therefore, we're able to shift and change to meet that new energy when we are interested, when we're curious, when we're open to that change. And that's a key part of it, because if you're not open to the change, oftentimes what happens is that in your body, it just feels difficult, challenging, physically overwhelming. Lots and lots of symptoms can occur. But when we're more in alignment or desiring that change, oftentimes it can be more comprehensive, really shift your awareness, and also help ameliorate some of the physical challenges. Not always all of them, and sometimes the whole process of evolution and opening up can even trigger some other physical issues, like what we know as ascension symptoms. But for the most part, the unawareness is much harder on the body than the awareness. And so I think that has had a big impact on the reason why more of us are engaged in this type of work, why it's a lot more easy, why humanity is shifting. I also think that we're getting closer and closer to disclosure events happening, meaning that the powers that be on this planet have known for a long time that there are extraterrestrial entities that have been very interested in this planet and been around this planet and focused on this planet. And areas within our galaxy and beyond, and that humanity is getting closer and closer to being ready for that to occur. In fact, by many reports, it's happening very soon. So I think because of that, they're trickling into the media and into our most focused upon media, which is television and the movies. They're starting to trickle in all of this information through storylines, through fiction, because it helps to get people used to it, right? It's helping to normalize all of that information so that once it starts to happen, people can say, oh yeah, well, that's right. That's just like it happened in that movie, or this is just like Star Wars, or that's just like some other movie they saw, or some TV show they saw. And so because of that, it's making it easier for people to stomach it. And I think that's the other reason why it's happening, because this has been going on anyway. And it's just that most people haven't really been paying attention or been exposed to it, right, apart from through TV.
Yeah. So for people who want to connect more to Earth, to all of her beings, and maybe for people who are looking to make more of a contribution to this whole healing process that looks like it's happening, where do you advise them to turn their attention? Connecting to Earth daily, as you already led us through. And what else do you think is important for people who want to help?
That's a good question. I personally feel like anybody who's interested in or resonates with the Mantis energy can call upon them at any time. They've told me up teen times that, that I'm really just sort of somebody who's working with them. I'm an ambassador for them, but by no means the only person that works with them. They appear to people all the time to help with their healing. So I often recommend to my clients that they call upon them. There are other beings within the earth that are also healers. We also know that there's other beings that are not earthbound. But I particularly like working with the earth-dwelling beings because I feel like our interests are very aligned, because they're here and they resonate with the earth energy. And so working with them doesn't blow out my nervous system. It's not overwhelming. It feels very centered and very balanced. And I think they know a lot about humans, which is also very important. They understand the human physical plight. So I think that's all very important. So if you're going to start working and healing, it's really helpful to work with beings that are connected to the earth, or to work with plant medicine, or to work with um, animals and helping animals. There's just as many animals that need help as humans on this planet. So there's lots of different ways to work, I think, in congruency with the earth and to be a healer too. And then there's also the environment, right? There's what can we do for healing the environment? And I think that if we also turn to the microbes have a consciousness and they have a lot to offer. They, I do believe, would fix this planet up so quickly if humans were wiped off of the planet. I'm not saying that's what I want to happen, but I do think that the microbes would take care of the plastic issue and the pollution and everything really pretty quickly if the humans stopped putting it into the environment. They would get things, because they've always been nature's right hand partner in keeping balance and the ecosystem going. The fungi, the bacteria, the protozoa, the viruses, they all work together. What we think is that they're competing against each other, but they all work together. And we have thousands and thousands of different species in our gut alone, some of the highest diversity of bacteria anywhere on the planet. And they are the ones running this beautiful machines that we are. They're the ones keeping us alive and afloat. And part of the healing epidemic that we're all under right now, the real epidemic, which is not just this current virus, but is the fact that so many people are sick, has so much to do with the loss of diversity of our microbiomes because of the way that we're farming, the way that we're producing food, the way that we're exposed to different preservatives and chemicals in the foods that we eat when they're processed, and the use of pesticides and glyphosate and things of that nature that are poisoning our water tables, the pharmaceuticals that are in the water, the effect of pharmaceuticals and long-term pharmaceutical use on our microbiomes. So our microbiomes are in this onslaught of chemicals that they have never had to deal with before. And because they're so adaptable, they're trying to adapt, and they're adapting as quickly as possible to this new environment they live in. And they are highly adaptable. So our bodies are changing rapidly in response to that, but we're still adjusting, and it's still difficult to physically survive and physically have your body function in a super healthy way, given what our microbiome has to put up with every day, from the air that we breathe, the water we drink, to the food that we eat.
Right.
So I see that as a big area for investigation and healing too.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because as you said, there are multiple reasons why the human microbiome is under assault and has been for, well, a century, we could probably say, or certainly 80 or 90 years. What can people do? I mean, people can work with you, and you can provide intuitive insight and toning. We haven't talked about your toning yet, so if you want to do toning at some point during our conversation, you can. But so people can work with you. They can also try to eat organic and avoid glyphosate, because that's very hard in the microbiome. Mm-hmm. What else? Probably a huge percentage of us today need some kind of microbiome repair.
Yeah. I think that the thing that we can all start doing is start to take the power of our own food supply chain back in our own hands. And that is to grow as much of our own food as we can. If you live in a climate that doesn't support that, try greenhouse gardening. You can even get small, inexpensive greenhouses or make one yourself. That's an idea. But just to try and eat as much food that you've grown as possible, really trying to avoid things that are processed or coming from a big factory, right, where they're using lots of preservatives to keep it. Really try and minimize, when possible, pharmaceutical drugs. Obviously, there are times when we need that acute care and we need to use medications to help ourselves get through, survive, feel better. But long-term use of them is something that is really difficult on the body overall, the microbiome. And so whenever possible, if you can keep things to short term, when they're pharmaceuticals, that would be of benefit. I do think that the body really can heal through energy and diet alone, through the use of plants. Plant medicine I find to be much more gentle and effective than pharmaceutical medicine in general, unless it's for something acute, right? Um, so I think that personally, you can just start looking into all the different ways. What can I substitute out and replace with something natural? What could I change in my routine that will create more of a connection to the earth, more of a connection to me generating my own food, more of a connection to me, or perhaps working with a small farm in my local area that I trust their growing practices, and I've been able to visit the farm and meet the people, and I know that they're not using any pesticides or anything toxic. How can I get involved with my own food chain? Because right now we're not very involved in it at all. We just go to the supermarket and we pick up whatever we want. We can eat as much as we want, and of any type of variety from anywhere around the world. Something's been flown in from somewhere else that your microbiome has never experienced before, even if it's a piece of fruit, say from Vietnam. That's fine and all, except for that you're not in Vietnam. So your whole body isn't acclimating to that energy there, to the environment there, the temperature, everything, the air. And so you're eating that fruit in a completely different geographical location. And so there's no reference point for your body for that piece of fruit. It's not going to kill you, obviously, but it's just out of reference for your body. And that's the way we have this amazing global system of shifting food around now. We're eating stuff from all over the place. And I do believe it's hard on the body, eating locally, eating stuff that you've sourced yourself or grown, foraging for herbs and or growing your own herbs so that you don't tax that herb in its natural environment. Those are all really important things to start doing and to start helping us to reconnect to our own natural environment. If you think about, even 100 years ago, people didn't travel. They didn't get food from outside of where they lived unless they were very wealthy and lived in Europe or England, where things probably started to move around on ships. But here you would have, in the United States, you probably wouldn't have been receiving a lot of food from other places. You would have eaten what you had access to. And when it ran out, if you didn't jar it or can it from the season before, that's it. You're out of tomatoes. You don't eat tomatoes in the winter because you're out of them. Then you'd move on to whatever was growing and whatever you could get your hands on. And you would cook it or process it in a way that was amenable to the season. In the winter, you would warm things up more. You would eat more warmer foods. In the summer, you would eat fresher fruits and vegetables, lighter, that matched the season and the heat of the warmth. So I think matching our eating to the season is helpful. Eating food that the microbiome from the soil of where you live. So your, body is integrated with the microbiome of where you live. And so not bringing stuff in from outside where you live is something that can help to bring more natural diversity and help into your gut. You might think that bringing something from have across the globe would increase the diversity of your microbiome. I haven't found that to be true. I find that it's like such an outlier that your gut kind of responds to it in a way that treats it as foreign.
That is so interesting because, of course, in the environmental movement, there's been so much talk in the last, I think especially the last maybe 10 or 15 years, about eating locally or regionally in order to improve your carbon footprint. But I had never thought very much about eating locally or regionally in order to support your microbiome. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What about fermented foods? That's a big food practice that's been brought back in the last maybe 10 to 20 years. And a lot of people are now drinking or making kombucha or dairy kefir or nut kefir or fermented vegetables. what do you think about that, or what do the Mantis tell you about fermented foods?
I think that fermented foods are great, especially if you live in an area where you can't get, for example, what comes to mind immediately is that in the winter months, let's say you live somewhere where it's very snowy and there's really, you're not going to be growing stuff unless you have a greenhouse outdoors, because the earth is just completely frozen over and hard as a rock and covered in snow. So you still want to get your dose of microbes during that time, and you're not going to be, let's say, eating as much fresh produce. So that would be a good time, I think, to supplement. I see fermented foods almost like a supplement, because it's not generally part of our, well, depending on where you're genetically originating from. This is the other thing, to eat microbially that matches your genetic background. So you can think about, wherever your ancestors hail from, because you have the epigenome, the factors that control your DNA, called the epigenome. That is handed down to you at least 4 generations back, and probably longer. So because of that, what your ancestors were exposed to helped shape the way that your genes express and what your microbial ecology is going to be most supportive of and geared towards. Because I do think that your DNA and your epigenome really support the presence of, or don't support the presence of, certain microbes. Because you see that some people living in very similar areas will have very different gastrointestinal ability to digest things and to deal, because they have different microbial backgrounds. They have an epigenome that just doesn't, they can both get the same input, but they don't have the same output. So I think it has a lot to do with genetics too. What do my genetics support microbially in my body? And so in line with that, if I'm eating with my background is Northern European. So I think about that, and I think about what Northern Europeans ate, and I think about the types of foods they would have eaten. And they probably ate things like sauerkraut and fermented foods in the winter months, but they probably didn't eat them a lot in the summer months, because in the summer months they had bountiful fruit and veg. So they're probably just eating that. And they're eating the fermented stuff when they couldn't get access to the other stuff. So with all things, I think that a little goes a long way. And with fermented foods, I don't think you need to have fermented foods every day of your life, because I feel like they're almost like medicine. It's like a big shot of microbes. And I don't like the idea of shifting or tilting my microbiome into any one, overexpression of any one species. I like it to keep it evenly diverse. And I think better than eating a ton of fermented foods is to just really focus on getting enough fiber in your diet. Because I think, number one, most Americans, if not all, do not get enough fiber. I think that the USDA recommendation is something like 20 to 30 grams of fiber a day. We really should be more like 70 to 100. The most healthy people on this planet are tribes in Africa that are way up there on the fiber, up to 100 to 120 grams per day. So we are not getting enough fiber. That's clear. And so the more you can focus on eating fiber, the better off you'll be, because the microbes need that fiber to survive. That's what they eat. They eat undigestible fiber. Resistant starches, we also call them. So if you really want to take care of your microbiome, probably better than eating fermented foods would be to have lots and lots and lots of different types of fibers, a whole diversity of fibers. There's all these diets on the market: be paleo, be keto, do this, do that. But at the end of the day, what has come to me from the Mantis, from the microbes, from everything I've read, is just that you just got to eat a whole bunch of fiber. Human beings are designed, A, to move, and B, to have a fiber-rich diet. When you don't have either one of those things start going wrong. So, stay away from the fake food, the Franken foods, and eat more fiber. And honestly, and eat locally, local fiber food.
And try to eat unwashed produce if you can, right? Not unwashed produce from a store, but if you're growing any of your own fruits and vegetables, to eat them unwashed if they look clean, or to wash them lightly, because the microbes that come onto our food from the soil and the environment generally are really valuable, right?
Really valuable. Yeah, those spore forming microbes are really good at helping to repair the gut and rebuild those gut walls. Yes, of course, if it's from the store, you have no idea where that vegetable's been, whose hands have been holding it, whether the water they're using has E. coli in it. So you do have to be careful with the stuff that's coming, even off of an organic farm. It's not like anyone's intending to pollute it, but it can happen fairly easily. But yes, if you're growing it at home, I don't wash my stuff. I just eat it right off the vine or what have you.
Well, I was just outside trying to get mulberries from my tree. The squirrels and birds are eating the ripe ones. So I pick them up off the grass thinking I'm probably getting even more good microbes now that these mulberries have sat on the lawn for a little while. And I have currants and other berries coming. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I want to ask you just a couple more things before we close. And one is, would you like to talk about anything that you're bringing forth in your work? I want to remind people they can find you at lightvibesnetwork.com. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to tell us anything about what's going on in your work currently, you're welcome to do that. And then as we close, what I invite you to do is to give us your vision of how beautiful life on Earth can be as we keep moving forward with healing and restoration and regeneration for all of the beings here.
Okay, that sounds lovely. I'd say that what I'd like to share about what's coming in right now is that we've been undergoing a period of transformation that I think everybody is aware of. Obviously, right now we have a lot going on in the collective upset with the energies of oppression and freedom being opened up and being expanded. We are a country that was formed upon slavery, right? And formed upon that oppressive regime, and formed upon the inability to be compassionate and loving with all beings, to treat all beings as equal as they are. So that is up for renewal now. What I see happening right now is that many of the systems that have been put in place for the past several thousand years are up for renewal and dismantling. And a lot of things are being dismantled right now in conjunction with each other. The financial systems will become renewed, dismantled in some ways. Political systems, the way that we give and use medicine, the way that we police, right? All of this is going to change in really, really important ways. And that change is unraveling and opening in this moment. Will continue on. We have a year 2020 that we've seen starting off with an amazing astrological event that happened January 12th. That was really that opened the door. We had a lunar eclipse in January. Then we've got one that just happened June 5th, another one happening July 5th. In the middle of those two is a solar eclipse on June 21st. And then we have another lunar eclipse in November, and then another solar eclipse in December. So this whole year has a lot of eclipse energy, which is always about redefining, opening things up, renewing, dismantling what isn't working. And so that's all happening this year. So it's going to be and continue to be a really big year of change and shift. So what we can do during that time is really important. is we really need to stay very present moment focused. So everything you can do to stay focused and connected into the present moment is really important, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities and a lot of things that are going to draw your attention away from the present, causing you to either worry about an unknown future or fret about things that have happened in the past. And really the only place we can affect change is in the present moment. It's the only place we can do anything about our reality. So it's super important that we stay as connected to the present as possible, and that we allow ourselves to participate in what's going on around us from a place of choice. I'm not a big fan of like sometimes in the metaphysical community, of just completely ignoring everything that's going on around me, politically or in the news. I really think that we need to watch and observe and engage from a place of choice. It's not going to be right for everyone to march, but it will be right for a lot of us. It will not be right for all of us to do some of the things that are necessary to make concrete change. But if none of us are paying attention, all of these people in the metaphysical community who are working on themselves and working on expanding, we also need to be engaged in the greater community of the people who are not as engaged in the metaphysical expansion. We need to take those tools and bring them into the community, not just be sequestered and say, oh, I'm just not going to pay attention to that. I'm going to pretend like it's not happening because it's low vibrational. I really like everyone to get to the point where they can be present moment focused, vibrate in their own vibrational field, not be perturbed by what's going on, but still actively engage in it if so chosen, and to do so from a place of love and compassion that enables you to participate without getting dragged down by what's going on around you, because you're not as susceptible to other people's energy when you yourself feel very calm, centered, present moment focused, and you're not taking the things around you personally because you've done your work, right? You've healed the wounds within you that needed healing. You've integrated self on many different levels. And this is much of the work I know that you're aware of that I've been doing, is integration of self with clients, integration of Akashic field, embodying source. That's been a lot of the energy and the information that's come in over the past couple of months. And I believe that the purpose for that is so that we can engage back in service into the collective and choose how we wish to show up in service every day to all beings, not just the beings that are also on the shared journey of metaphysical expansion.
Thank you.
So, yeah. And then as a parting dream and wish for what I would like to see, I'd really like to see all of us feel 100% comfortable in our own skin, to finally be free from feeling judgment or from judging ourselves, because it's that perceived judgment or fear of loss or fear of lack that causes so many of us to behave in ways that shut each other out, that don't show compassion for one another. So what I'd love to see on this earth is that we step into more compassion through that letting go of holding ourselves outside of each other, of thinking that we're different from one another, that the false belief that there's not enough to go around, because there's always enough, the supply is infinite. The false belief that somebody is out to get you or that the world is against you. The earth is for all of us to participate. We are a direct expression of the earth. There is enough here for everybody. And when we focus in on being very present moment focused, in alignment with earth, we can create beautiful, compassionate interactions with one another, knowing that we don't have to worry about, I got to take what's mine. I got to do what I need to do for me and my family. And I'm sorry, I can't help you because I don't have enough. That we can step back into a place of feeling comfortable and confident. There will always be enough. And then I do have the bandwidth. I do have the strength to turn around and also help my fellow citizen to also feel nurtured and loved and not judged. So that's what I really hope for all of us, is that we can come into that place of non-judgment and acceptance, because when you think about what people who have near-death experiences always say, what I remember about that experience is a feeling of total acceptance. And wouldn't it be beautiful if that we could have that feeling of total acceptance while we're here embodied on earth, because we know ourselves as a direct expression of source. And as source, we know that we are accepted because I am that I am, right? So there's no reason to worry anymore. And we can stop living from that place of worry and lack.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was really nice to have you here today, Jeilene. I loved talking with you. Listeners can find more about Jailene's work at lightvibesnetwork.com. And of course, if you want to be in touch with Humans and Earth updates, you can find us at humansandearth.com. Thank you again, Jeilene.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad you're doing this again, and I'm so glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Humans and Earth. Please share this episode to broaden engagement in the regeneration our world needs. You'll find social media links in the show notes. To explore our other offerings, visit www.humansandearth.com.